I used to think cheap hotels were just inconvenient. Bad Wi-Fi, hard pillows, maybe some mold in the bathroom. But after what happened last spring, I've realized there's a different kind of cheap. The kind where you feel like someone's watching you, even when the hallway is empty. I'd been driving for nearly 12 hours straight. I was moving cross-country, alone, with all my belongings crammed in the back seat of my Honda. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of that hotel, my body felt like it had been folded in half for days. The sign read, Silver Pines Inn, though half the letters were burnt out and flickering. The lot was almost empty. A few cars were parked near the back, but none of them looked like they'd moved in days. I went in anyway because, honestly, I didn't care. I just wanted a shower and a bed. The lobby was tiny, with low ceilings and that old motel smell. A mix of cigarettes, bleach, and something sour you can't name. Behind the desk was a man in his late 40s with tired eyes and greasy hair. He didn't greet me, just stared at me for a second, then said, "Checking in?" "Yeah, just for the night," I answered. He slid an old clipboard across the counter. No computers, no ID check. Just my name, scribbled on a sheet of paper that looked like it had seen years of coffee stains. He gave me a key card, not a modern one, an old-school plastic card with room 204 written in black marker. As I reached for it, he said, "Stay on your floor tonight. Don't go exploring the other levels." I laughed awkwardly. "Other levels? There's a basement." "It's staff only," he said, eyes still locked on me. "People get curious, don't." I nodded. I didn't think much of it. I was too tired to care. Room 204 was at the very end of the hallway on the second floor. The carpet looked damp, like someone had spilled a mop bucket and never cleaned it. I dragged my bag inside, locked the door, and immediately noticed how quiet it was. Not just quiet, unnaturally silent. I tried to distract myself with TV. Only 2 channels worked. I picked the one with static and some late-night shows just for background noise. I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember is waking to footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. I sat up in bed, realizing they weren't coming from the hallway outside. They were directly above me, but I was on the top floor. I stared at the ceiling, heart thumping, listening to the slow, rhythmic pacing. It sounded like boots. I told myself maybe there was an attic or some old storage space up there, but the front desk guy had said my floor was the top one. After a few minutes, the steps stopped. The silence returned. I woke up groggy, still uneasy from the night before. At checkout time, I went downstairs to grab a coffee from the lobby. The front desk guy was there, reading a newspaper. "Hey, is there, like, an attic or something above my room?" I asked. "I heard footsteps last night." He looked at me blankly. "No attic, just the roof." "Maybe someone was walking around up there," I suggested. He set his paper down and leaned forward slightly. "There's no one up there. And you didn't hear footsteps." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a statement. I didn't know what to say. I just grabbed a coffee and left. But the way he looked at me, like he was daring me to push it, made my skin crawl. I'd planned to leave early, but exhaustion got the better of me. I decided to stay one more night. Maybe I'd been imagining things. Maybe the long drive was messing with me. Around 11 p.m., I was half asleep when I heard something new. A door slamming shut. It came from the hallway. I crept to the door and peered through the peephole. The hall was empty. I waited. Nothing. But then, faintly, I heard it. A soft dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. It was coming from below, from the basement. I know I shouldn't have gone down there, but something in me needed to know. I slipped on my shoes, grabbed my phone as a flashlight, and crept down the staircase. The basement door was halfway down the main hall. It wasn't locked, just a rusty push bar holding it closed. When I pushed it open, a wave of cold, damp air hit me. The stairs led down into complete darkness. I told myself I'd just take a quick look, just enough to prove to myself there was nothing. The basement smelled like old wood and rust. My flashlight cut through the dark, landing on pipes overhead and a single hallway that ran beneath the hotel. There were several doors, all metal, with little windows. Something caught my eye. One door was ajar. I stepped closer. My shoes stuck slightly to the floor. Something tacky had dried there. When I reached the door, I nudged it open with my foot and shone the light inside. It wasn't a storage room. It was a small, windowless space with a single bed against the wall. The sheets were dirty and balled up like someone had just gotten out of them. There was a chair, a table, and I swear this is true, a stack of Polaroid photos. I leaned closer, my stomach churning as I realized the photos were of guests, people. Some of them were asleep in their beds. Some were sitting up, looking right into the camera, like they'd just woken up. The last photo was of me, taken in room 204 while I was asleep. I froze. My whole body went cold. Then I heard it, footsteps, coming down the basement. Stairs. I grabbed the photos, dropped them in panic, and bolted. My flashlight bounced wildly off the walls as I sprinted down the hall. I heard the footsteps picking up behind me, faster, heavier. I slammed the basement door behind me, ran to my room, and packed my bag in less than a minute. I didn't even stop to check out. I just ran for my car and drove until the Silver Pines Inn was nothing but headlights in my rearview mirror. 2 days later, I called the local police department. I gave them the name of the hotel, told them what I saw. The officer on the line paused, then said, "We've had complaints about that place before. We'll check it out." But no one ever called me back. I still don't know if they found anything. Sometimes when I'm half asleep, I think I hear those slow, deliberate footsteps again, like someone pacing just above me. I never thought much about Airbnb hosts. I always figured they dropped off the keys or left a code and went about their lives. But after what happened at that cabin last fall, I'm starting to believe some hosts never really leave. It was late October when I booked the trip. I needed a weekend away. No work emails, no traffic, no constant city noise. I found this cottage on Airbnb that looked perfect. A tiny 2-bedroom cabin nestled in the woods, just 20 minutes outside a quiet town. The pictures showed warm wooden walls, a stone fireplace, and a porch overlooking a forest that looked like it had been painted by autumn itself. The host, a man named Eric, had glowing reviews. Words like kind, helpful, and attentive. Normally, I don't care about that stuff. I just want to be left alone. But this time, I didn't mind. I figured he'd give me the key, maybe recommend a good local diner, and that would be that. I got to the cabin around 4 p.m., just as the sun was setting. The woods were glowing gold and red, and for a moment, I felt calm. Like maybe this weekend would actually help me reset. Eric was waiting on the porch. He looked to be in his late 50s, tall, thin, with thinning gray hair and a polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Welcome," he said, holding out his hand. His grip was firm, almost too firm, like he wanted to make an impression. "Thanks," I replied, forcing a smile back. "The place looks great." He walked me inside, and gave me the kind of tour I wasn't expecting, pointing out every detail, like the creaky floorboards, which cabinets had mismatched plates, even how to jiggle the key in the lock to get the door to close properly. He moved through the house like it belonged to him, which of course it did, but something about his tone felt possessive. Before leaving, he said, "I'll be next door if you need anything. Just knock." I paused. "Next door?" He gestured, vaguely through the woods. "My house is just on the other side of the ridge. Close enough to help if you need me. Don't worry, I won't bother you." I smiled and nodded. At the time, it didn't seem strange. I spent the evening with a book by the fireplace. I must have dozed off because I woke up sometime around midnight to the sound of something upstairs. The cabin had a second floor, but Eric had told me the upper level was just storage, a place he locked off for his own things. I'd seen the door earlier, bolted and sealed with a chain, but now I was hearing footsteps, slow, measured creaks on the floorboards above me. I froze in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Maybe Eric had come back to grab something? But why would he come at midnight? The footsteps stopped. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was the wood settling. I went back to bed, though I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I found something odd. My toothbrush was wet. I know I haven't used it yet. Chalked it up to paranoia, but the feeling of being watched lingered all day. When I went into town for groceries, I caught myself checking the rearview mirror, half expecting someone to be following me. That night, the noises upstairs returned. This time, it wasn't just footsteps. I heard a door creak, like someone was opening and closing something slowly. I grabbed my phone, ready to call Eric, but something stopped me. If he was in the cabin, what would I say? "Hey, are you creeping around your own place?" Instead, I walked upstairs. The storage door was still locked, but I swear I could hear faint breathing on the other side. The next day, I decided to test something. I left a glass of water on the kitchen counter, right on the edge. Before leaving for a hike, I took a picture of its position. When I came back, the glass had been moved just an inch, but enough to know someone had been there. I messaged, "Eric, hey, just wondering if you stopped by the cabin today." He replied instantly, "Nope. Why? Something wrong?" I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. That night, I stayed up late on the couch with all the lights on, my ears straining for every creak. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again, the upstairs door moving slowly. I grabbed my phone and whispered, "Eric?" Silence. Then, creak. A floorboard above me groaned. My heart pounded. I stepped outside, barefoot, the cold night air slapping me awake. I walked around the cabin with my flashlight, but there was no sign of anyone. When I came back inside, something was different. My suitcase, which had been zipped shut by the couch, was open. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in my lap, staring at the stairs until the sun rose. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I packed everything in a rush and loaded it into the car. Before I left, I looked up at the second floor window. The curtains shifted. I can't say for sure, but I swear I saw a pale hand slowly pulling them closed. I drove away so fast, I almost left my phone charger behind. I left a review, not the one I wanted to leave. Just something bland. Decent stay, good location. I didn't want Eric knowing I suspected anything, but every so often, I think about that hand in the window. I think about the wet toothbrush, the moved glass, the breathing behind the door, and I wonder if Eric ever really left that cabin at all. Business trips are supposed to be boring. Check into a hotel, attend some meetings, eat terrible takeout, and leave. But that hotel in Denver wasn't boring. It was the kind of place that makes you wish you'd paid extra for something nicer, something safer. I was booked at the White Willow Suites, which sounded fancy when my company made the reservation. In reality, it was a tall, aging building with yellowed wallpaper and hallways that smelled like old coffee and mildew. The first thing I noticed when I walked in was how long the hallways were. They stretched endlessly, lined with doors that all looked the same, like something out of a dream that turns into a nightmare. I checked into room 908. The clerk at the front desk gave me the key. Card without looking me in the eye, like he'd done this too many times and didn't care anymore. I didn't think much of the place at first. The room was fine. Stiff bed, thin curtains, humming air conditioner. I ordered a sandwich, ate half of it, and turned on the TV. Sometime around 11 p.m., I decided to grab a soda from the vending machine down the hall. That's when I saw him. A man stood at the far end of the hallway, facing the wall. He wasn't moving, not leaning or checking his phone, just standing. I slowed my walk. "Hey," I said softly, almost out of reflex. No reaction. I felt my stomach twist. Something about the way he stood, too still, too rigid, didn't feel right. I decided to skip the soda and turn back to my room, locking the door behind me. I brushed it off, probably some drunk guest. But when I looked through the peephole before going to bed, I saw the man again. Same spot, still facing the wall. The next morning, I woke up to a note under my door. In blocky, uneven handwriting it said, "Stay quiet." No signature, nothing else. I checked with the front desk, but they shrugged. Maybe another guest is playing a prank. I didn't buy it. That night, I peered down the hallway before bed. He was there again. Same man, same spot. His head was tilted slightly this time, like he was listening. I slammed my door shut, slid the deadbolt, and pushed the desk chair up against the knob. Around 1 a.m. I woke to a faint sound, a soft scraping against my door, like someone was dragging a nail or a coin across it. I held my breath and looked through the peephole. The man was closer now. He stood just a few feet away, staring directly at my door. I stepped back, my heart pounding, not daring to make a sound. The scraping stopped, but he didn't leave. He just stood there for what felt like an eternity. When I woke up the next morning, another note had slipped under my door. "I can hear you." By the third night, I was ready to check out early. I called the front desk and told them there was someone loitering on my floor. "Sir, there's no one on that floor but you," the clerk said calmly. I froze. "What do you mean?" "I've seen him. I've got notes from him." There was a pause on the other end. Then, almost in a whisper, "Don't open your door." The line went dead. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside my door. Not just one person. It sounded like two sets moving slowly up and down the hallway. I looked through the peephole. The man was there again, but this time he wasn't alone. Another man stood beside him, mirroring his stance, both of them facing my door like they were waiting. I backed away, holding my phone, debating whether to call 911. Before I could decide, a third note slid under the door. It said, "Room 908. Check out now." That was enough for me. I grabbed my things, stuffed them into my bag, and climbed out the window onto the fire escape. I didn't even care about the refund. I ran to my car and drove until I hit the next town. I called the hotel the next day, but no one answered. When I looked it up online, I found a string. of negative reviews, guests complaining about the men in the hallway, notes under the door, and staff that doesn't care. I still don't know who they were, but sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I see them. Two figures at the end of an endless hallway, waiting for me to open the door. When I booked that Airbnb, I was expecting a quiet weekend away with friends. Something simple, a cabin, a few beers, some hiking, and no responsibilities. But I can't look at rental homes the same way anymore. Not after what happened in that cabin. There were 4 of us. Me, my friend Dylan, his girlfriend Jess, and our buddy Tyler. We rented a log cabin tucked into the woods, about 40 minutes outside of town. It looked cozy in the pictures. 2 bedrooms, a fireplace, a porch swing, and a long gravel driveway. The listing had a single odd note. The closet near the kitchen is for storage and will remain locked during your stay. I didn't think twice about it at the time. Every Airbnb has some kind of locked owner's closet. We got there just after sunset on Friday. The woods surrounding the property were almost too quiet, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of cedar and dust. The locked closet was the first thing I noticed. It was a tall, narrow door near the kitchen with a heavy-duty padlock that looked newer than the rest of the house. Guess this is where they keep the cleaning supplies, Dylan joked, rattling it. Yeah, or bodies, Tyler muttered, grinning. Jess rolled her eyes. Stop, it's just a closet. We laughed it off and unpacked. The rest of the night was normal. We made dinner, played cards by the fire, and stayed up talking until almost 2 a.m. I was half asleep on the pull-out couch when I heard it, a faint scratching sound coming from the kitchen. At first, I thought it was a raccoon, or maybe the wind, but then I realized the noise wasn't outside. It was coming from inside the cabin. From the locked closet, I sat up, straining too. Here, the sound stopped. I told myself it was just the house settling and went back to sleep. The next day, I brought it up for breakfast. I swear something was moving in that closet last night, I said, pointing at the door. Dylan laughed. What, like a ghost? Could have been a mouse, Jess said, though she avoided looking at the closet. I let it go, but all day I felt uneasy. Kept catching myself glancing at the closet whenever I walked past the kitchen, half expecting it to open on its own. That night, we all stayed up watching movies. Around midnight, Jess went to bed, and Dylan followed soon after. Tyler and I were finishing a second movie when we heard it. A single knock from inside the closet. We froze. You heard that, right? I whispered. Yeah, Tyler said, his face pale. We waited, staring at the closet. Nothing else happened. After a long silence, we both decided we were just tired. We went to bed, though I barely slept. The next morning, I woke up early. The cabin was quiet, sunlight pouring in through the windows. I went into the kitchen to make coffee. The closet was open. Not wide open, just a few inches, enough to see the dark space inside. Hey, I called Dylan, who had just woken up. Did you guys open this? No, he said, rubbing his eyes. It was locked last night. The padlock was on the floor. It hadn't been broken. It had been unlocked. We all stood there, staring at the closet. Jess refused to even look inside. I finally grabbed a flashlight and stepped forward. The space was small, barely big enough for a person to stand. The walls were scuffed, the wood dark and splintered. But what made my blood run cold were the signs that someone had been there. A crumpled sleeping bag, empty water bottles, a half-eaten granola bar, and a pair of muddy boots. "This isn't storage," I whispered. Jess backed up, shaking her head. "We're leaving now." We started packing our things, but it was already getting dark, and the closest hotel was an hour away. Dylan convinced us to stay one last night and leave early in the morning. We locked every door and window, even pushing the dining table in front of the closet door just in case. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the table scraping across the floor. Something, or someone, was pushing it from the inside. I jumped up, heart pounding, and grabbed Dylan. We both stood in the kitchen, frozen, as the closet door thudded against the table again and again. "Call 911, I hissed. We didn't wait for the cops. We grabbed our bags, ran to the car, and peeled out of that driveway like our lives depended on it. Later, I contacted Airbnb and told them everything. They claimed they'd look into it, but the listing disappeared a week later. I can still hear that sound in my head, the slow, deliberate scrape of that table being pushed aside, and the thought that someone had been living in that closet, silently waiting, makes my skin crawl every time I think about it.